Hello, welcome to Broken City Podcast number what? What is this, 12?
12.
All right, number 12. With music from the stream.
It's kind of dark.
It's nice.
Sure.
I like it.
All right.
So how you guys been?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, bro. I've been sick, well, in between sick and well, and today I feel finally half normal.
Okay, what about you?
I'm good.
You good?
Wow.
Good.
I want to be you.
You're just straight. I'm good.
Good.
You're straight.
Well, I thought it'd be cool to talk about like the 80s. Like we're all products of the 80s. Like we grew up, we're influenced by the music from the 80s. And I thought it'd be cool to kind of discuss like what that kind of music did to us as musicians, as producers, as writers, as creators. Like,
Interesting. Because it's come back.
it's come back, and it's also like a really big part of our history.
It came back?
Elements
Well-
of it for sure, like the Tears for Fears 80s and that kind of like real glitzy synthesizer version of it. That stuff kind of made its way back into pop.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense that, like,
The band
I mean-
Churches comes to mind.
and even Taylor
Or-
Swift
yeah.
called her record 1980
Yeah.
something.
Or the
like,
1975, that band is like so 80s, like it's crazy.
There's a certain part of the 80s that came back. I think it's the earlier new wavy synthy part, not
Like
necessarily.
Simple Minds or something.
Not necessarily the Patrick Swayze ballad.
No.
What was that?
It's the cooler stuff.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
My voice is
Man, do it
getting low.
I'm getting dirty dancing right now.
But yeah, 80s, man. It seems like I never thought that the 80s would come back. But
Mhm.
dude, 20-something years goes by. I just learned that a generation, this is sort of off topic, but not. A generation is technically considered to be roughly 25 years. When
Mhm.
somebody's kids can now have kids.
Oh, okay.
When the average kids have kids, basically. That's a generation. I always thought of it as more like 10 years for some
Right.
reason. A decade-ish. Without really thinking. But yeah, that seems about right. So,
Right.
when a generation goes by, the 80s can be brought back, and the new kids are just like, this is brand new.
Right.
When you talk about the 80s coming back, it's in the context of almost being a novelty. It's not
To
in the
us.
well, I think even to those bands, that it's not. Well, I guess this is a question, not really a statement.
Okay.
It's not in the context of like I'm creating from my soul, and this is what happens, and these are just the tools available to me, and these are the sounds that I'm used to hearing, and that are part of
Yeah.
me.
There's some
Sort of what
self-consciousness.
happened- Yeah, sort of what happened in the '80s. Like that stuff just it wasn't contrived. They weren't trying to sound like the '80s in the '80s.
It came as a result of huge technological advancements.
Right. Just from the analog sense to the digital sense.
And it was a reaction to the 70s. Everything's like a reaction plus the
Digital
new technology.
recording.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if that's true. I think I read somewhere like that. Frankie Goes to Hollywood was the first, or maybe it's first mainstream. I don't know. It's the first DDD recording.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like
yeah.
recorded digitally, mixed down digitally.
Yeah.
Like it never
Mastered
ventured into analog territory.
Yeah, for those of you listening, you used to be able to look on the back of a CD. First CDs were the 80s, maybe 79, 80, right?
It is-
And you could look on the back and see how it was recorded with three letters: A analog, D digital. So it could be like ADA or ADD or
well, ADA wouldn't be a CD.
ADD?
what's that?
ADA wouldn't be a CD, would it?
No, it'd be the guy with the reel-to-reel. Or ADA would be a record,
It'd be a record, I guess.
phonograph.
But yeah, I guess what I'm saying is like nowadays there's this thing that they know exists, this sound, and like when you play that sound, it takes you back to that genre, and I don't know. This is all within a big question mark.
Right.
Yeah, you're
But it
using.
just seems like it's being more novelty rather than, this is who we are.
You're either literally using. I'm sure there's a bunch of ways it could happen, but you're using nostalgia as a tool, an artistic tool,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're also potentially, not. I don't know if it's tricking people, but I'm sure these bands who are musicians probably know where that stuff comes from, but their fans might just be going, "Sweet, that sounds new." They might not even know. Think about somebody born in the mid '90s or late '90s. That's still somebody who's like 20.
Right.
So, or like
Yeah, they may not-
18,
they don't have the
19,
same-
20, 80s, depending on who their parents were. If they were like just stockbrokers or something and weren't playing music around the house and didn't educate them in music, those music fans might just be like the 80s. I don't know.
Well,
I
it's
don't care.
no different than going to American Idol and talking to contestants about the Beatles and nobody knew who the Beatles were. I mean, it's like there's a
Hell's
generation
crazy.
out there that doesn't know anything past a certain point. Like if they're from the 2000s and they know maybe a bit about the
I think
90s.
that depends on their parents.
Yeah, of course. Your parents' record
Exposure,
collection
just culture
changes
in
you.
general.
Yeah.
But it's no different though than like the Beatles being influenced by Chuck Berry. It's like they took from Chuck Berry and kind of like moderned it up a little bit. And it's like it's a weirder time because yet the 60s were more of a like experimental time. 70s were kind of settling in after all the stuff that happened in the 60s, and then the 80s was all technological. So it's like it was kind of a magic time because technology had gotten to a point where it's like, oh, we can make music with computers, and
Totally.
it really shaped the sound of the music.
Yep.
And now technology is insane. So it's like it's like you can do anything with music. So we're in a faster paced time than even the 80s. I like seeing a couple fractions in the 80s. There's like the first
I love
part,
it.
which was sort of coming out of the 70s and stuff was still kind of darker sounding. And then you get like 1984, it's like Madonna, Prince, all that stuff starts coming into play. And it gets different. It starts to sound different and more corporate too.
Okay, so let's talk about the music.
Yeah.
So, that's interesting. I think people that are like grasping at the newest technology and then just like making their work kind of like saturated with it, that's the stuff that sounds the oldest later and the least timeless. Like I think about the records in the 80s, and stop me if I'm being like totally all about my own taste and way subjective, but I feel like the records that from the 80s that transcended the 80s and that still hold up today are the ones that have very little of that technology, very little synths. They used it, but they used it, subtly, and they used actually synth sounds that really never went away, like Moogs and
I think
sort of fake strings, but a certain type of fake strings, like Peter Gabriel, all the Police stuff.
Yeah. Police. That's funny that you said the Police because I'll do like Pandora or whatever, Spotify, and I'll type in Police because I just want to hear that. It ends up playing a bunch of 80s songs, and it's weird to me.
Yeah.
Because in my head, they're not an 80s band. It's just the Police.
They're just a band, yeah.
And why am I hearing these 80s songs? And it's kind of a weird
Maybe that's because they
association.
straddled the 70s.
I think
but
that might just be me. But like to me, the Police are not an 80s band.
I don't think
even
it's
though-
just you.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But what you were saying before, I think somebody brought up Tears for Fears, but it immediately came to mind that the songwriting, I think, for a band like that transcends the way they recorded it. Because if you listen to Mad World, it's dated. It's you could call it cheesy. I mean, there's definitely like an 80s kind of stigma to it, the way the original's recorded. But look at the legs on that song, like how many times it's been redone, and just the songwriting itself is expression of what the song is.
Yeah, I think songwriting transcends everything, but if the song is saturated in that era's sound, it forces you into nostalgia. And like I'll show, like for example, Natalie's 7 years younger than me, so I'll show her stuff that like has so much sentimental value to me, but maybe does sound pretty 80s, like something like Everybody Wants to Rule the World or something. It's probably one of their more timeless 80s recordings, but it sounds like the 80s. So, or actually, I'm avoiding the truth in this story. The truth is, I was showing her Toto.
That makes all the difference in the world.
It really does. So she's reacting to more than the Sonics, but there's an argument for the fact that like the song comes first, but if the song and the Sonics, like the Police stuff and Peter Gabriel stuff, on both levels, I think stand the test of time. It might need some
what just came to
remastering.
mind when you said that is like Boston More Than a Feeling.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that transcends when it was recorded. When I
It
hear
does. It still sounds old, but weird old. Nothing
Yeah.
else sounds like that.
it's like
It was
just,
very unique and a great song too.
just amazing.
That stuff.
Some of the Journey stuff too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the Journey, the biggest album was in 1981, so Don't Stop Believing, all stuff is from the 80s.
81.
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn.
When you think about it too, when you're just an artist doing what you do, and the 70s were just a year or two ago,
Oh, yeah.
you're really not in the 80s yet.
No.
If you're a famous band before the 80s, you're still kind of doing your thing.
You're catching
Unless
up.
you're Queen, I guess.
Yeah, but Queen really kind of blew
They
it in
went,
the 80s too. They got really two 80s, you know. And like that Hot Space album was terrible.
That's the thing, dude.
You heard that album before?
No.
It's horrible.
Check this out. I feel like how people respond to new technology and new eras really says something about them as artists that you may not otherwise know. Like, for example, the 70s I think was a golden age for recording and for production because a lot of things came together. Like, multi-track recording had been
There
around.
were no shortcuts in the 70s.
There were no shortcuts.
Yeah.
The gear is still gear that we covet today. Those preamps, those compressors, like, we haven't made anything better. We've made stuff that's more enhanced, or you can do more with one piece of gear, but we still all want Neve and old API preamps. We still want those old compressors. Like, we're modeling them in Pro Tools. Like, so the people that had to record that stuff, editing was a pain in the butt, so they had to, like, perform. They were using this incredible gear. They had to spend time working on their craft and make these great records. And then once you could cut corners, you could see which artists were actually doing that because they wanted to, and which artists were like, shortcut, I'm there, or like, fake strings, ooh, that's neat. Like, this isn't a diss on Stevie Wonder in any other way, but he saw the synclavier and was like, all right, and he stopped playing drums on his own stuff.
His music
All the
definitely
magic
suffered.
of Stevie actually suffered when he was given the tools of a modern age.
Yeah.
And I think Queen,
Yeah.
to some degree, they were like, oh, great, disco and this new sound, and they just embraced it. And you're like, oh, the old Queen was actually partially by accident. The magic of Queen and the great sounds and the performances, they started to kind of leave that when they had a chance.
Well, they probably got bored. They're moving.
They came around.
Forward
That
thinkers
last
now.
album
Right.
was amazing.
Definitely more rock.
Which one? When was that, though?
It's Innuendo.
That's almost the 90s, right?
It's the year before he died. Yeah, it was 89 or 90.
What about like a good example of technology in a rock band is Rush. Like when they got out of Signals and did Grace Under Pressure. That's a pretty drastic change. That's like a band that definitely decided we're going to go synthesizer. That's the future. I'm playing electronic drums.
Was it more about the hair, though?
It was everything was a bad, horrible switchover. It was a terrible switchover.
So
It wasn't all bad.
What was
There's some
before,
good, Red Sector A is a great song.
what was before Grace Under Pressure?
Signals,
Signals.
which is their best album, or one of them.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess they experienced
It was
a
a
lull.
huge changeover. We're talking like all synthesizers.
I think, well,
Very
given
little
that it's a three-piece, anything that allows you to expand your orchestration and you know your palette as a three-piece, I think they gravitate towards.
And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's cool that they went forward. I think that people like Miles Davis, people that think forward is a good thing. You're not always gonna get good results.
Oh, was Grace Under Pressure when the Simmons or the Dynacord drums came into play?
Yeah, Neil Peart was using all Simmons drums.
Ouch. That hurt my throat.
And it hurt your soul.
Okay, now I remember.
Yeah, there were bands like King Crimson and Rush that were embracing the technology to a really high level. Like they were going to make the technology into something, which I admire. I think it's cool. I think it's cool when people are able to. I get when you've done something for a long period of time and you're bored of it and you want to try something new and stay fresh.
That's tough, man. Reactionary art tends to lead to lesser art. If the reaction is to your own work or something, like you're kind of reacting against. Obviously, all art is reactionary. We're reacting in our souls, but if we're kind of like, ooh, I already did that, so I'm just going to do the opposite of that. Right. There's something egotistical.
They had a pretty
about that.
deep catalog. At
they
that
did,
point,
for
too.
sure.
So I mean, there could be an element of, well, we've kind of
we've done everything.
Yeah,
they wanted to do something
expended all
different.
those
I respect it. I
resources.
totally respect it.
Let's try something new.
Yeah.
I just while you were talking, I was thinking of like the whole Skrillex kind of soundscape.
Mm-hmm.
How that just was the big thing, and then like now it's sort of almost cliche, almost one
the
of those
dubstep.
Godzilla
Godzilla.
there's a little bit of a stigma to it, I think.
Yeah.
Now.
The only thing was he invented it, so it was cool that he invented it. So what everybody did with it.
Did he invent it?
He kind of invented that sound.
It certainly made
With
it
the vocals
popular.
and all the weird stuff. Like he was definitely the designer.
Like a
of that.
front runner of it?
I'm sure there were other people doing it, and he like caught on to it, but he got famous.
Yeah.
There's always somebody in the shadows doing something that they're like, I like that.
It's a really cool texture. It's
Yeah.
super unique. Definitely had never existed before.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
But then,
But it can be overused.
yeah, but now it's associated with a genre instead of just being on your palette. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks. It'd
Yeah.
be cool. It'd be cool if you could use that and it didn't take you somewhere else.
Right.
I think that's why. Okay, so here's a question for both you guys: Is it that it's technological and then applied to music in such a drastic way that you just go, wow, and then it gets old? Or is it that really it becomes so ubiquitous, everybody gets onto it, that it gets old? Or is it because it's not about the song, it's about the sound?
I think
And anything that's about the sound and not the song just doesn't have staying power.
I think you're right about the latter. I think if you don't, because if you can't really think of Skrillex's songs, you think of his sound. You think of what he created as a producer, as a.
It's fashion.
It's fashion. But what he did,
Fashion
but
is-
here I will give him credit for this though. What he did with the Bieber song, that attached a good song with a good production. Like they came across some, like he wasn't doing his dubstep thing.
Which song are you referring to?
The Sorry, the one he did with Diplo. Those two guys produced the song Sorry. The song Sorry itself is a good song. Like,
Are you talking about Bieber?
yeah, the Bieber song. So that was a good example of taking technology and sort of wrapping it around like a piano-based song.
But it's subtle. I mean, that's not like the Skrillex of You Walk.
No, that's what I'm saying. He was able to, like, when he wraps his production in a cool way around a song, it can be good.
Yeah, he was smart in that he stayed relevant by collaborating
Yeah.
and by dimming down some of the more extreme elements of his production.
That music's all extreme. And then you're right. The thing about that kind of music to me seems very extreme. There's no subtleties in it. And that can be hard to take after a while.
That's
It's like heavy metal.
Well, I think, but what's his purpose? His purpose is like the club scene or rave or
I think it
something
was-
Which
like
is a
that.
high turnover world.
Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
But I
EDM
mean,
especially.
it's the type of thing you're probably drawn to in a live setting
Totally.
where it's like a party. It's not necessarily.
Yeah, for a while there, it replaced rock because it was an aggressive sound.
It's
it
still
really-
replacing rock.
It really represented the same sort of emotions that a cranky heavy metal guitar does. It's that same distortion, exciting thing, and rock kind of went out of vogue, and that came in to replace it. So in a live setting, you're just like, intensity, loud, super high impact, distortion.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough for rock to come back to where it was. I mean, I don't know if it ever will be what it was, but they need to figure something out. Like, rock bands need to exist, and people need to play instruments, you know, but they need to figure out what they're going to do to make it work, because I feel bad for, like, a band. Like, if you were starting a band right now, dude, let's go to my garage and make some music. It's like, where does it go? Do you play, what songs do you play? Like, we knew what to play because it was like you play some Jimi Hendrix songs, play some Rush songs. It's like you had your rock and roll stuff, and you had the Police, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of technology, but you still had the rock core. Like, if you wanted to be a rock
Kids
band,
are still learning Deep Purple.
yeah. I mean, I used to
Smoking the water.
teach. I taught for 10 years at Saddleback, and kids would come in, and they always wanted to learn the same stuff: Smoke on the Water, Sunshine of Your Love, all the rock songs, because that's what the guitar is designed. I mean, it's designed to play that music. I mean, that's what it's about. So kids will still want to do that, and they'll still want to play rock and roll. But I just wonder what's gonna happen with rock.
Well, I think a couple things happen. I think the internet makes it. The way the internet creates a culture of who knows what is going to happen makes guessing the future like impossible.
Yeah, you can't guess what people are gonna like.
But I do think that rock was slightly poisoned by the pop rock of the mid to early 2000s.
Mhm.
Once you had like the best of that, in my personal opinion, I think a lot of people would agree, would be like "Since You've Been Gone" by Kelly Clarkson. That's like the ultimate pop rock song.
Right.
It's definitely not rock in the sense that you would say like Led Zeppelin is rock or something, but it's definitely not pop in the sense that you would say NSYNC was pop. It's basically a rock track, but with a elegantly amazing singer on
Great
top of it.
hook,
With a
too.
great hook, just great songwriting in a rock context.
Yeah. Then you have bands like Creed, and
Creed,
Daughtry,
Avril Lavigne,
Nickelback.
yeah, and then there's a hook, Ashley Simpson. They were
Yeah.
all using rock to convey a tough attitude.
It was all very
rockin'.
poppy.
But everybody knew, like, yes, you have the plug-in that makes your direct guitar sound like rock.
Hey Violet fits into that. Cherry Bomb.
They do to some degree, although they're more
punk, I guess.
they're more influenced by real rock, but I think definitely there's a pressure on them to be more pop than rock, and to they're in between that area, like, because I know that the people around them, being that we were so close to making those records, Cherry Bomb and the Hey Violet EP, more so Cherry Bomb. I think Cherry Bomb was able to be a rock band, and they really encouraged
They embraced that. They were cool about it.
But the problem is it didn't actually work out. So they were all kind of like, well, pop now.
Yeah.
Or more pop anyway. But they can really play, which is nice. But I think maybe that poisoned what rock is. Now people are kind of like, what is real rock and where is it? And we don't want it.
Who consumes it?
And then, but in terms of
do you think bands like Foo Fighters, since they've been around for 20 years,
yeah,
do you think they get a pass?
Yeah, they're a classic band. And Dave Grohl is cool.
I think he's on a victory lap. He's going around and hanging out with his heroes more so than I think he's 100% focused on record making and being. He's in a cool spot. Like, let the man do whatever he feels like doing.
Right.
But I don't feel like, he's in a way one who's known for carrying the torch of rock. But I feel like in my opinion, the music was better back before he was carrying the torch, and he was, maybe enjoying his lifestyle as a human being, like going, I'm gonna hang with Paul McCartney, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that.
I think that might refer to maybe like the last album was somewhat questionable for a lot of people, and that partly because of the way it was made.
Yeah.
Literally, but
yeah.
Like if you go back just a couple years to Wasting Light, I think that's like one of the best albums.
Yeah, I don't really know that record, so
I
can't talk on that.
Yes, I definitely feel what you're saying off the latest thing, but I don't think they're too far out. What's that record? 4 years old by now?
So, yeah.
It's only it's been 4 years since they released something that I think stands on its own without the, you're Foo Fighters, so you get a pass. We'll like it because you're Foo Fighters.
Right.
I think it was genuinely good. I think when a band like that goes away, somebody's gonna fill in that gap. I think it's all gonna come around. Like I'm thinking about Jack White, White Stripes. It was kind of based in that. Definitely more of a
punk,
kind of a southern
punky blues.
Yeah, but
that's the thing. It has to come back different.
And I think 4 years is the new 10 years.
Yeah.
That's not mathematical.
Well,
but I do think
1
the
year
time,
is
like 4 years in this day and age is like a long freaking time.
Yeah.
In music, because the turnover is so crazy.
That's like a decade.
Not that that's an important statement, but so I think that if rock, well, here's what I'm interested to see. We were talking about the '80s. The '80s have clearly come back, or they've come back. I don't know how clear and like everywhere it is, but we've seen it come back because we're producing records and getting like briefs from A&R guys, labels, and going like, we want it to sound like this meets that meets this, and we're like, 80s meets pop. That's like the thing. And so we have to technically understand that like, there's a synth sound on this thing that's a total 80s synth sound, and that's the sound, in the reference they just made. And we understand it as being 80s, and it's all over the place. A certain element of 80s. So if that's the decade we're reaching into, when we start reaching into the 90s, I feel like that's going to be fun. Because that's why I feel like the Cherry Bomb record was actually like 5 to 10 years too early. Because what happens when the 90s come back? They're starting to. I think the 90s has started to come back in terms of like the Mariah Carey 90s.
Yeah, that part of it.
And the R&B 90s. There's a little bit of Boyz II Men coming back and stuff, and there's a little bit of that, who's the singer that works with Max Martin and has the bad grammar in that one song?
Everyone.
Ariana Grande?
Ariana Grande, what did you say?
I said everyone.
Ariana Grande and everyone. But there's definitely some 90s
yeah.
and her stuff, but what happens if grunge like really comes back as if it's something new to young artists, and the singer-songwriter movements of like the Lilith Fair and the Sheryl Crow and the Sarah McLachlan. If that starts to make its way back, I feel like that's dipping into something that's was there in the 70s and the 60s. Like it's like the classic, just actual things made out of wood that you record through wire, you know?
Yeah, and there's
As
some artists
opposed to,
doing the singer-songwriter thing, which is cool, but not a lot. Like I can only think of two off the top of my head, Sam Smith and
That what?
that make that kind of music, like organic sort of singer-songwriter music.
That are at the top of
But
the
they're
heap.
at the top of the heap. There's some other things that are kind of like the Bieber thing had a little bit of that, but it was interspersed with electronics.
Yeah.
It's like there's definitely people are wanting to hear some stuff that's like that, because you can't just do all pure electronic music, because that'll be too much for everybody too. There has to be a balance of everything, because not everybody wants to hear a four to the floor banger kind of a song. You need to hear somebody's truth at some point, or something that somebody's speaking from their heart.
And that's what makes this era so unique, is that everything is available all the time, everywhere. So it's like there isn't like this corporate sort of move
No,
towards
it's not one
something.
style.
It's like now, if you like something, you can just go get it and focus on it. So it's much more blurry. It's what
almost
style
like
is popular.
It's not what is going to be created that's new. It's what's going to be unearthed. Like it's already there. There's just so much. There's so much out there. It's where is the focus going to hit? Because there's
and
there's unique things happening. Like if you dig deep enough, there's unique things happening everywhere.
For
that
sure.
are just like
It's just who has the time to dig. Like that's the problem. It's like to get to the consciousness of the consumer, the stuff they're being fed is a certain brand of music. Like a certain aesthetic. It's not all one style, but it's a certain thing. Like if you listen to Kiss FM, it's like you hear it. There's a sound that permeates through most of it. There's hip hop elements. There's like a little bit of singer-songwriter stuff. But it's all interspersed electronics. But the people that are making really different kind of music, those are the people that are having the hardest time, because how do you even sell any records? How do you sell a song?
But then
Well, I think
something
that's the
shoots
point.
through.
There is always something to shoot through. It has to be really good. If it's really good, people will respond.
if your goal is to sell records, then you're either going to stop making that music, or just going to get lucky, or you're going to change the type of music you make.
Right.
So
Which you see more often than not.
Yeah, I think
Unfortunately,
there's always going to be that element out there, especially now with just the internet and the availability that you can basically find anything. You can find
Sure.
any niche you want.
SoundCloud has all that stuff.
But there's always going to be that element out there that does it because that's their passion.
Yeah.
And they don't care if they sell one record. That this is just what they want to do. And
that's what we need everybody to be doing, in my opinion. Not to be like what is that, idealist? I don't know. I just feel like a lot of times it's some kind of insecurity that makes you want to feel like you need to copy something in order to get heard or something. But
you end up filtering yourself out. Like the ones who weren't born to do that will filter themselves out because they have other goals in mind. Like, I need this many hits, I need this many likes, I need this many sales.
Yep.
And they'll eventually get out of that genre or whatever niche they happen to be in.
It's like, and when you're in that world, the corporate music business, as an artist, but also as somebody who is striving to have a career and pay the bills, it's incredible how much you see, like, that target move from, we'll get an A&R brief for a band, and it'll start at, like, yeah, we want kind of a, like, Neon Trees meets Duran Duran thing. And then you go, all right, let's see what we can do. And then, like, 6 weeks later, they're like, no, it's really more of a One Direction meets, like, it'll change, like, kind of upside down and sideways. And you're like, okay, so you're just looking for what you've decided will work.
But they don't
you're
even
not
know.
looking for something that's rooted in who this artist actually is. or anything. It's just literally like move the target to wherever it's gonna like fit.
And even when they get exactly the target they thought they wanted, they don't want that either.
Nope.
Because they're like, oh, well, that band with that sound doesn't work.
They still just want to be surprised, and they want something that
They want something
feels
fresh.
great.
Yeah, no matter what, it has to be original on some level, or they'll be bored too. Because they'll be like, we heard somebody handed us a song just like that about 5 minutes ago. So
that's why you got to chase after your authenticity, because you cannot gauge
you gotta do what feels right to
what
you.
anybody's going to want, and
it has to be good.
Good is a moving target too, which sucks. What people consider to be good also has to feel right to them.
Right.
Like, we've heard it.
Oh, sure.
Ooh, that's really good. I don't know if that would work right now, or if that's good for anybody that I know.
Right.
Or like, it's a very strange thing.
And sometimes songs can take a long time to get placed. Sometimes you have written something like a year ago, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, somebody will call up and say, hey, this person wants to record it. And you're like, wow, that was so long ago. It's amazing how songs can sit for ages until somebody finally thinks it's
And man, when that happens, I would say 9.9 times out of 10, if that's possible with songs, a ninth of a song.
Yeah.
But it happens with a song that does adhere to that approach of authenticity and going after something that's pure. Because a perfect example is a song that you really were the captain of the ship on, The Hard Way.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a piano ballad that we wrote a while ago. You brought that song in, and it was just amazing.
Ages ago. Crazy.
And you'd written it from a very personal perspective, and it was, very outside of some sort of intellectual career move. And we all thought it felt great, and, it got pitched around and stuff, and it didn't land anywhere. And then, over a year later...
That was a cool story.
It's coming out now on Javier Colon's new record.
In April.
In April, yeah. He was the first season winner of The Voice.
Super good singer.
Great guy, great singer. And he totally did the song justice. It was actually a female song.
Yeah.
And we lowered it a half step.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
it's still high.
It's
and
still high.
He murdered it. So I can't wait for people to hear that. But
yeah, that came out good.
That was one of those examples where it's like, man, why don't we, why are we always in that headspace?
Yeah. It's hard to capture those moments, too. To be in that headspace where you capture just the right... You have to be there. It has to hit you and then be real. Every now and then they come in like that, where you're like, oh, that feels authentic. And then people really respond to it.
Yeah.
And our people... there's one that I hope we get cut one day you can call up. That I feel like that's a song that's like...
Yeah.
Ian, our manager, loves it. It's a great one. Adam came up with it. And it's like... I'm just thinking, that's going to get cut one day. Because it has that feeling. There's a feeling attached to it.
Yeah. It came from a real place.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. It's like those songs that just happened. Like, you didn't... That was just came through you one day.
Yeah.
It's like, those are hard to come by.
And those usually start in a lonesome place. Like,
Yeah.
you started The Hard Way by yourself. I was in here on a Sunday in my boxers with the acoustic bass, just thinking, like, getting that feeling like I just want to write a melody over root notes and have that mean something.
Yeah.
Chords, like implied chords, of course, but and just in that feeling. But yeah,
I love the chords in that song. You should put that at the end of the podcast. I know you can't though, because it's not.
Yeah, and I'll ruin it.
Can't do that, unfortunately.
You'll just have to wait one decade
It will.
until somebody finally
A year from now, it'll get
figures
cut.
out that it was worthwhile.
But it's interesting. The technology and like it's funny because in the '80s feel like now too, because everything was moving at a rapid pace. It was all about synthesizers and this and that, and I feel like the now is kind of similar. It's like technology is still moving everything forward. Everybody's chasing the technology because it's something that's appealing, but how do you make really good songs out of technology? That's the trick. You still have to be a good songwriter, because all the songs that have a lot of technology, they're good pop songs, but the ones that stand the test of time have that extra quality.
It just gets you focusing on the wrong stuff. So you
Yeah.
have to be very aware that, it's like you're building a house, and all you can do is focus on the cool drill you just got.
Right.
It's like, yeah, man, and you're just putting the screws in all the wrong places. Like,
Yeah.
if you focus too much on the tools, you forget what it is that you're building, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what, a lot of times, new technology makes you just kind of like, you're obsessed with how cool it sounds to go meow, and you forget, like, oh, you need a song too.
You always need a song.
By the way.
You always need one of those. It's why it never hurts to have songcraft at your disposal.
And a real drummer.
And a real
Song
drummer.
and a real drummer.
Gosh, man, that'd be awesome if real drums come back.
With feel.
So like, I do miss feel. I miss knowing that a drummer's on a record and I can tell who it is. Like that's become obsolete.
I still think it'd be cool.
Dude.
I think we talked about this before, but you know, on food labels you have certified organic or whatever.
Certified non-vegan.
There's some sort of like
Certified
official
monopoly.
seal that you put on an album that is, you know, no beat doctor, no auto tune,
Right.
like just this is certified organic.
Well, you know that
Yeah,
probably,
because
funnily enough, that would be a thing that people would probably be very into because it's a shtick in a way.
Well, yeah, because I think it would be. I think you would
We get
experience it within that context too, knowing. Because if you know, like if you listen to Adele or any great singer, but you know 100% there was zero auto tune used, nothing, no manipulation,
Right.
of pitch. You're immediately have a higher level of respect because
For sure.
you know, even though the product itself without that you know certification is still great.
Right.
You're still left wondering, like, when you buy those concert tickets,
Yeah, am I going to get the real
is
thing?
it going to
Yeah.
be as good?
Yeah.
You know, because there's of course proof of that all over the internet where it's not as good, not with Adele, but I mean just people in
Right.
general. But it would just be
Yeah, it's a slippery slope of process and result.
yeah. I don't have
And
a problem with
also-
people using it. I
Yeah.
would love to know if they're not using it.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of singers don't like it, oddly enough. A lot of newer singers that are coming up now don't like autotune. They want to know that their voice can hold up and be...
I've noticed that a
Be
lot
real.
of those people that don't like autotune, I think some of them it's a pride thing. Like, I
Totally.
want to be able to get it right. Others don't know what it is, and they think, oh, using autotune, I'm going to sound like T-Pain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to sound like a robot. And it's like, no, if you use it wrong or
It's
if you
subtle.
want
It
to
can
do
be
that.
subtle.
Yeah, so, but certified organic is awesome. Especially relative to, like, performance, like certified live organic. That's cool. to know.
If you knew a drum track was not beat doctored in any way or spliced or no, we didn't cut in for anything. Like it was just record, played it.
You didn't replace a snare drum with another snare
Like
drum.
yeah,
Yeah.
no nothing. Just all you're hearing is like if there's a way to actually know that, when you listen back to that in that context, it's just such like a greater level of appreciation.
For sure, it's a mental game. It's like
Especially
you
if it's done well.
know what you're getting. People don't know what they're getting with the records anymore. They don't know if the singer sang it.
I
They
guess
don't
you'd
know.
have to film it.
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, the Foo Fighters do that more or less. They don't really doctor their records. They just go to tape.
Yeah.
You know,
In a lot of ways, here's how I kind of look at editing.
I like editing.
If
It saves time.
Well, editing is, it's like asking a filmmaker to shoot everything in one take and edit in camera. Like, all right.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that, but
There's
would you like to
nothing wrong
know
with
if
it.
a film was made
Sure.
that way?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that expand or just increase your level of appreciation? If
I
you
think
knew?
so maybe as a filmmaker, but if the film would have been better had he not done it that way, if the film's great and he did it that way, then it just adds another layer of appreciation. If the film kind of sucked and it was like that, I'd be like, I wish he would have just edited.
You know, there's a scene in Pulp Fiction that it's I don't know the exact time, the length of time, the duration, but
A one-shotter?
It's a single shot.
Yeah.
And it goes on for like minutes, and it's a single shot. And my son actually pointed out to me, he's like, oh yeah, we talk about it in our film class, like, here it is, and he played it for me. And just knowing that was a single shot, how familiar I am with that movie.
Was it the car accident
It's,
where he ends up in the
I know
pawn shop?
part of the single shot, I think, is where they're going up the stairway, right before they go to the apartment, where the,
Oh, okay, it's when he's like jumping the fences,
I think.
Bruce Willis' character, and going in and getting his...
I'd have to look at it again.
I think that's what it is. And then he Uzi's...
But there's a single
Yeah.
shot in there, and when you watch it, knowing that it's a single shot, it's just whoa.
yeah.
That's seriously cool, and it just be
And there's a
be
feeling
nice
to
if
that.
people if artists were more. Not saying they should do that more, But if they did say something, like, by the way, this track, no autotune, no beat doc.
Well, they kind of used to do it in the 70s. Like, if you look at the back of a Queen record, it said no synthesizers were used on this record. Like, they were proud of the fact that they got all their sounds. Or
You know, I will say this, is that when Rage Against the Machine, when...
I was thinking about that too.
That bugged me.
It bugged you?
Yeah. I thought it was pretentious. Like, very happy for you. You did not use any synthesizers on this recording.
That's an old thing.
You know, I see both sides of it for sure, but I kind of thought, like, isn't the idea that it ends up being awesome? Not like that you did it a certain way.
Right.
Well, they're really
it's got to be a balance of, like, the song can't suck and say, here, look, I did that Dave Weckl tune where he did all the triggers.
That's right.
You know, it's like, hey, I did this with all triggers. It's like, yeah, but it didn't sound that good.
Yeah.
It's cool. Did I just say something bad?
Is it the difference? Like, I mean, it's like, isn't it similar to like?
Edit that out.
This is not certified organic podcast.
I'm trying to demonstrate. Look, Mom, no feet or no hands. It's kind of like that. It's like,
yeah,
in a sense.
I mean, it's got to be good. And then with the extra added bonus, hey, by the way, this is one take.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
you know what it is maybe this is the thing, or this is what would make me sort of appreciate that more, is this was performed live with no editing, and when you hear it, you go, man, there's something special about that, and then you read that and you go, that's why it's special. If there's something you're actually getting out of it that does feel like more, and it wasn't contrived, I think you don't feel like you've been lied to, maybe.
I think it's like to bring up Foo Fighters again, but Dave Grohl's Everlong on the Howard Stern show.
Yeah.
Like, just blew up, and now it's a thing. Like, you can download it. It's like an actual, legit version of the song, because it was him with his guitar in a broadcast studio.
Yeah.
And with no production, with all the flaws, with all the pitch issues, with all the rhythm issues. And it's just, there's magic about it. You know?
Did you guys see
humanity in it?
Yeah.
Did you guys see the Foo Fighters thing where they did that spoof on them breaking up?
No.
And he's sitting there talking to Butch
that.
Vig, and he's like, it's like, dude, the future is you just press one note and the music just comes out. He goes, just one finger, one note? He's like, yeah, and he gets in the studio and he's just like playing one note and then singing like, oh. It's pretty
one
brilliant.
Finger, one note.
And then the guy who's Nick Lachey comes
Nick
in
Lachey,
and he comes in and auditions for the Foo Fighters because Dave's breaking up. It's like, so Dave's going to go off solo and do one finger pop. And Nick Lachey comes in and sings Everlong.
No way.
He sounds good. Actually,
He's
sounds
a good
pretty
singer. That's awesome. I got to see that.
Dave, that's one thing about Dave's smart. He does things in a smart way. He knows how to make movies. He knows how to be funny. He knows how to be everything you'd want somebody to be. He does that.
Yeah, he's not an accident.
And he's also a genuine guy. Like, when you hang out with him, he's a really cool person. It's like you just go, that guy's cool.
Yeah.
You know, he's the guy who buys Big Macs.
Not that I've hung out with him. You've hung out with him.
Yeah, but he's the guy that'll come to the studio and go, I'm going to McDonald's. Who wants a Big Mac? And like, he'll take everybody's order and bring them back Big Macs. And he drives through on his motorcycle, gets the Big Macs, and comes back, and it's like...
That sounds like he's trying to kill everybody.
He loves McDonald's, but...
Yeah, to bring it back around about the click track, certified organic, one of those documentaries, Nirvana / Dave Grohl documentaries, he talks about having issues with lithium, the song, not the substance.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And he says that there's no click track. Like, not only was it recorded like organically, but he didn't even play to a click. And going back now, where I'm at in my life and development, and listening to Lithium, knowing that there's no click track, it's pretty damn cool. You know, just knowing that.
Right.
Even though, like, did it make it a better song or whatever? I mean, there's that, you could argue that.
Right.
Yeah.
But, personal best.
Yeah, I think we're at a place now where
knowing that there's no click track on there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, in a way, it's the two different ways of looking at music. Is like are you performing something, or are you like painting a picture? Are you like layering things and creating this work of art over time that you then present, or are you capturing a moment in time? You know, are you saying like, I wrote this piece of music, that's the painting, and then in terms of capturing it on a recording, it took the same amount of time to play it as it did to listen to it. You know what I mean? And that, I think, is a very different, special thing. I think that's what's special about live music. And there's something special about that in recorded music. And when you go back in history and you think, like, wow, Frank Sinatra was in front of the orchestra singing at the same time like that, and it took the same amount of time to make that recording as it did for me to listen to it. As opposed to, like, we spent a year in the studio and here's 10 songs, and we spent months. Like, it's just a different...
I like both.
It's a
I love both.
Both are absolutely valid, but they're different. I think psychologically we've come to an age where people have abused the recording process to the point where you almost feel like you're being lied to in recordings, I think. Do you guys agree with that? Like, when you hear somebody sing live, okay, early Taylor Swift, her records were, these were good songs, recorded with a good sounding voice, and then she's on the MTV Music Awards or the Grammys, and she's having a really hard time singing over and over and over live.
I remember seeing that.
You feel like, well, I've been kind of lied to about this talent. Like, she's
a
good painter, but she's not a good performer. And there's this feeling of, like, you're being let down or you've been lied to,
right.
Which is okay for the recording, but then and I think that's why that certified organic thing has meaning, because you don't want to feel like you're being lied to.
I think certain artists aren't ready to. They put her with Stevie Nicks. She wasn't ready for any of that. Like, you need to have more experience before you go off and do something like that.
And she's much better now. But
she is way better now. But yeah, sometimes you're not ready to do the live thing like that. And there's unfortunately people didn't know that.
Yeah?
They found the hard way.
It's certainly not this way is the right way or this way is a better way.
Yeah.
It would be nice to know which way you used.
I get the same satisfaction.
So I can appreciate it more.
Yeah, I get the same satisfaction from making a live recording and making a studio recording. I get the same satisfaction. They both do the same thing for me. Like, I did that DVD where we perform everything live, no overdubs. And I'd watch it back and go, I did that. That's awesome. I feel good about that. But then I do the same thing with the recording, and we do stuff together. And I'm like, we did that. It's awesome. It's like I get the same. There's no different feelings about it. They're both a result.
Yeah, and you're definitely somebody who, I would say, for most of your life, straddled the fence in terms of, like, very much a jazz musician, very much somebody who records and produces.
Yeah.
I would say I've done a lot of performing, but I'm definitely more of like a painter when it comes to music. Like, I want to capture performances, but, like, I want to capture a certain kind of performance, and you want
to control the environment.
Yeah, I want to create something that really feels like it captures everything that I want inside of it.
Right. I understand that. I like that process. I know what I mean. I know what you mean. It's good to have a balance of both, because if you can go up and record, like what you're saying, if you have the ability to play with an acoustic guitar and deliver, there's a satisfaction to that cannot be denied, and also people get something from that. But also, if you're able to make a sonic landscape, is equally appealing to me. I like
maybe it has something to do with understanding the value of each and having a vision for what you want. Because, does it matter if the drums feel a certain way as opposed to just being perfect? If you just always, like, default to, drums are supposed to be perfect, or if you always default to vocals are just supposed to be in tune, you don't get all of the musical value and artistic value in time deviation, which classical music is full of, and same in pitch deviation. Pitch deviation and time deviation are emotional tools, and if pop music, like, removes those from the emotional toolbox, which is kind of crazy, because, like, when you can hear it in Adele's music. Those times, I mean, she's a great singer with great pitch, but you can hear her, like, go for a note and be a little under it and then get to it. Or you hear her hit a note and overshoot it a little bit, and you're like, that creates tension and release.
Yeah.
And when you hear, I was just watching this old video of Jeff Porcaro from MI, actually. They had, like, a lesson that he had done that they pulled out of the archives. I'd never seen it.
That's cool.
I thought I'd seen everything that you could see online with Jeff Porcaro. And his playing is just, like, incredible. And it's so not perfect. But it's so consistently not perfect.
Yeah.
And the way it's imperfect is feel. It's like just, it's his thing. It's like this organism of imperfection that's just perfect.
Yeah.
And people don't really value that as much anymore.
The only place I see imperfections or like drum imperfections is hip hop, where they've got this beat that's all jacked up. Like they're going after that sound where it's not all mechanical. They want to feel to it.
And they're getting it in such a strange way because they're getting it with like this.
Yeah, they're actually their performance is based on an MPC, but there's an art form to it though. It's like a really interesting art form. The way they attack it, they view that's an instrument. The MPC is an instrument.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's your fingers or if it's a baseball bat.
As long as if you can make music with it and you can make it feel good, it's just like your art. You know, you can't. It's all valid.
Don't diss my art.
Well, you take pieces and you put it together. You know, it's the same thing.
If you're telling a real story, I mean, how you tell it is, in some ways, secondary. In other ways, you know, how you tell your story is just as important as the story itself.
But on a funny side note, the drum machine they're starting to put feel to drum machine, where they don't have drummers doing it now, but they want to give the drum machine what we missed from the drummer doing it. I see that happening. I hear things being laid back. I hear things being pushed forward. I hear things sounding way messed up.
Yeah, that's like taking a candy bar with corn syrup in it and trying to like strain out the corn syrup and then remake the candy bar to feel like it's organic. Like, I don't know. I think people are doing whatever they can do with what they have available to them.
Sure.
You know, and that's commendable because when you know, if you're not a drummer and you can't afford a drummer and you want drums, try to get them. You know, obviously don't steal, but in the end, I think what stands the test of time is the truth of getting things in an honest way. And I think when you do that, you gain something that people can feel. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. When you hear somebody's, like, gosh, man, Carter Beauford from Dave Matthews Band, he has a feel. Mm-hmm. You can tell that whether there's editing between takes or not, you can hear that guy has a feel. And there are a lot of other, you know, maybe lesser known people out there that have feels that are making music, but I think what's popular right now is perfection or imperfection in this calculated imperfection in this way, which is cool. I think Timbaland was somebody who really
he's always been doing that.
Yeah, a lot of guys.
It has a swing. It's a swung feel, is what it is.
Yeah,
but it's very jagged.
There's value to that for sure. What are you thinking right now?
I was thinking about the drummer for Jack White, and I can't remember his name.
Oh, the newest drummer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that guy.
Oh gosh, what's that YouTube video called?
Oh yeah, he does a lot of that.
Escaping my mind, but not Rat Pack. Pack. I don't have my phone.
But his stuff, his drumming is.
I'll try to think of it and give you the link.
Yeah,
I like that guy.
That guy is.
Their whole band is like that, though.
Amazing. Yeah.
The whole trio was like a screwed up hip hop track, but it was really cool because it was so consistent.
But he's. It's not just. It doesn't feel just like hip hop. Like it feels, especially with Jack White's like background, where it has that
historical.
Yeah,
sensibility.
There's something there. I said Southern earlier, but it kind of feels like that greasy sort of.
Yeah, he's connected to the old blues guys.
Yeah.
And punk.
But it definitely, I mean, even the White Stripes embrace imperfection as part of the performance.
Yep. I mean, their thing, to try to give you an example of it, like, Gannon, you play something that's just whacked out. The drummer is going like...
Was it a shuffle?
And then he was doing like a 16th note, like...
Oh.
Definitely put that video on the end of the podcast.
Well, the thing is, one guy is they're both being unrelenting in their feels.
Yet they're listening to each other.
Yeah.
So there's this feeling like, even though I should go.
Go better than the other way.
And then like it pops on the at the end of the phrase. Like, they all hit it.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah,
they definitely have have a chemistry between the two of them.
It's
really
cool. It's
stuff.
tension, and it's like I'm putting my humanity in your face.
It is that song, that particular song we're talking about, is tension the whole time.
Yeah,
It's
there's
so
no relief.
unnerving, but it's awesome. Like it's
It is cool. I love
it's
it.
really cool.
Yeah.
There's a certain discipline to play like that for sure.
Sounds like life, man. Sounds like waiting for something to happen. It's like,
It was grooving.
happen. It's cool. Well, maybe we should end here because you gotta bail out.
Yep.
Thanks for listening, guys. Podcast number 12. Adam Watts.
Dule Mata.
Mike Jackson.
Pico de Gallo. See you next time.
Leave you on that chord.
I got a chord for you.
Ringing sound, poison rain, don't come around here again. I will cover you, you will feel no pain. Wait for the blue sky again. I did it for the money, babe, did it for the green. Then my luck ran out, lost my sanity. Now I'm here today, wanna testify. Don't do it for the money, babe, 'cause the money's gonna lie.